Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Welcome to Temple Ahavat Shalom for our Friday evening Kabbalat Shabbat service, where we'll also be celebrating the life and work of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr. I'm joined with all the folks here who are in the sanctuary, our small group, with Allison Rosoff, our cantorial soloist, and down at the keys, Tim Berneman, who later on this evening is going to share composition of his own on the topic of civil rights. It's going to be very good. Through the years, there have been so many leaders who have bravely fought for freedom, equality, for human rights. The prophet Moses, whose story we read in the book of Exodus, helped free the Israelites from slavery in Egypt through triumphs and trials alike. He guided the people to live in accordance with God's commandments and vision. In 1963, about 250,000 people gathered at the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C. to listen as the great civil rights activist, Reverend King, recited the now famous words, "I have a dream." Some 250,000 Americans of every race, religion, socioeconomic background, coming together for economic and civil rights for African Americans and for the values that imbued our nation's founding, the promise of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. We've come very far, but we have so much more to go. On this Shabbat evening, let us remember Reverend King in both word and in song, a great leader and a truly prophetic voice that continues to speak to us today. This first song we're going to sing, it's actually a spiritual. It's called You Gotta Sing. For those of you at home, you'll see it right on the screen in front of you. For those of you here in the sanctuary, it's going to be somewhere in that Shabbat booklet, and you'll be able to follow along pretty quickly, I believe. I first learned this song, about 10 years ago at an AME church. I was listening to the gospel choir sing it during a pulpit exchange. Later I learned actually that the children's guitarist and singer Raffi made another version of this, not necessarily civil rights based, but this is a beautiful song in the gospel tradition. You gotta sing when the Spirit says sing. You gotta sing when the Spirit says sing. When the Spirit says sing, you gotta sing right along. You gotta sing when the Spirit says. We're gonna repeat that. You gotta sing when the Spirit says sing. You gotta sing when the Spirit says sing. When the Spirit says sing, you gotta sing right along. You gotta sing when the Spirit says sing. You gotta laugh when the Spirit says laugh. You gotta laugh when the Spirit says laugh. When the Spirit says laugh, you gotta laugh right along. You gotta laugh when the Spirit says laugh. You gotta dance when the Spirit says dance. You gotta dance when the Spirit says dance. When the Spirit says dance, you gotta dance right along. You gotta dance when the Spirit says dance. You gotta pray when the Spirit says pray. You gotta pray when the Spirit says pray. When the Spirit says pray, you gotta pray right along. You gotta pray when the Spirit says pray. You gotta sing when the Spirit says sing. You gotta sing when the Spirit says sing. When the Spirit says sing, you gotta sing right along. You gotta sing when the Spirit says sing. Gonna sing Light These Lights by Debbie Friedman.
Them
find the prayer for lighting the candles on page 2 in Mishkan Tefillah in the prayer book. An excerpt from the I Have a Dream speech. In spite of the difficulties and the frustrations of the moment, we still have a dream. It's a dream deeply rooted in the American dream. We have a dream that one day this nation shall rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed, that all people are created equal. We have a dream that little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. We have a dream that one day every valley shall be exalted, every hill and mountain shall be made low, and the glory of the eternal shall be revealed, and all of us shall see it together. We'll bring in the spirit of Shabbat by calling to the Shabbat Melachim, the Shabbat angels or messengers, when we sing Shalom Aleichem, peace be to you, on page 24.
Shalom Aleichem, Malachei HaSharet, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech, Malachei HaMelachim, HaKadosh Baruch Moachem Shalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech, Malachei HaMelachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Baruchni LeShalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Tzitchem Shalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech, Malachei HaMelachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
Continue now with words of praise, exalted and hallowed be God's great name, the words of the Chasi Kaddish, page 26.
Yitgadal v'yitkadash Shmei Rabbah.
Amen.
B'yamad yivrach yurtei v'yamlich machutei b'chayechon u'v'yomechon u'v'chayei dekol Beit Yisrael b'gala b'gala u'v'zman kariv v'imaru amen. Yeshmei Rabbah mevarach le'olam u'almei almaya yitbarach yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yipa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnasei v'yithadar v'yitalev v'yitalal shemei dekudesha brichu le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata damin ran be'ama v'imaru amen.
Continue on page 28 with a call to prayer. Please rise as we begin Shema and its blessings. Continue on page 31, prayer for the evening Ma'ariv Aravim, the mixing of day and night. Praise to you, Adonai, our God, from whom the evening flows. Your wisdom sets the way on which time and season glide. Your breath glides the sail of the stars. Creator of the tide of time and light, you guide the current of day into night. As heaven spans into infinity, you set its course for eternity. Praise to you, Adonai, our God, from whom the evening flows. Baruch atah Adonai, Hama'ariv Aravim. And on 33, words of love, Ahavat Olam. Wisdom and wonder, passion and instruction, story and symbol. All these things are Torah gives to us. And the more we devote ourselves to it, the more it grows and gives. What could be a truer token of your abiding love than this holiest of your works and the living language that gives it form? We'll sing Open Up Our Eyes as we prepare for Shema, Hear, O Israel. Open up our eyes, teach us how to live, fill our hearts with joy and all the love you have to give. Gather
Shem Kivod Malechuto Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Shem Kivod Malechuto Le'olam Va'ed. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad.
Feel free to be seated. We'll continue chanting the words of the Shema. You shall love Adonai your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your might. Page 36, or on the screen before you. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha v'chol levavcha v'chol nafshecha u'v'chol me'odecha v'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavcha hayom al levavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam v'shiftecha b'veitecha uvlechtecha v'derech u'shochbecha uvkumecha ukshartam le'ot ayadecha v'hayu letotafot bein einecha uktavtam al mizuzot beitecha uvisharecha leman tizkeru vasitem et kol mitzvotai vitem kedoshim leloechem ani Adonai Elohechem asher hotzeti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim liot lachem Elohim ani Adonai Elohechem. Free at last, great God Almighty, I am free at last. When will the time come when we can speak Reverend King's powerful words and know that God's redemption is shared with all people? Redemption will come when each and every one of us stands up for justice, when each of us helps others shake off the heavy yokes of hatred, oppression, hunger, and poverty. Then we'll see God's glory rise from every man, every woman, and every child. So this next song, this is going to be a version of Mi Chamocha, Who Is Like You, the Song of Freedom. For those of you who are here, it's in your Shabbat booklet, so you'll find the words. It's a great song written by Ellen Allard and Peter Allard called Standing at the Sea, and it's really got some, and I can't do it at the same time while I play guitar for sure, but it's got some cool hand motions as well, but maybe for another time. Standing at the Sea. Standing at the sea, Mi Chamocha, standing at the sea, Mi Chamocha, standing at the sea, Mi Chamocha, freedom's on our way. Singing and dancing, Mi Chamocha, singing and dancing, Mi Chamocha, singing and dancing, Mi Chamocha, freedom's on our way. Freedom, 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 freedom's on our way. Coming up behind me, Chamocha, they're coming up behind me, Chamocha, they're coming up behind me, Chamocha, freedom's on our way. Bound no more, me Chamocha, bound no more, me Chamocha, bound no more, me Chamocha, freedom's on our way. Freedom, 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 freedom's on our way. Kamocha, freedom's on our way. Freedom, 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 freedom's on our way. We're on the other side, Kamocha, we're on the other side. Kamocha, we're on the other side. Kamocha, freedom's on our way. One God, Kamocha, one God, Kamocha, one God, Kamocha, freedom's on our way. Freedom, 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 freedom's on our way. Freedom's on our way. Freedom's on our way. From freedom to shelter and a sense of safety and protection, the words of Hashkivenu on page 42.
Hashkivenu Adonai, Eloheinu leShalom, leHamidenu Shomreinu leChayim.
Hashkivenu Adonai, Eloheinu leShalom, leHamidenu Shomreinu leChayim. Ushmor Seitenu, Uvoenu, Lechaim Shalom, Be'ata Blessed are you, Adonai, guardian of Israel, whose shelter of peace is spread over us, over all your people Israel and Jerusalem. Baruch atah Adonai, haporei sukat shalom, aleinu v'al kol amo Yisrael, ve'al Yerushalayim. Let's rise now for the words of our standing prayers, our tefillah, the prayers, which begin on page 46 with God open my lips.
Adonai, sifatai tiftach ufi agirta hilatecha. Eternal God, open my lips, that my mouth may declare your glory. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, v'Elohei avotenu v'imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, v'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, v'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomer Chasadim Tovim, V'choneh Hakol, V'zocher Chasdei Avot V'Imaot, U'meri Gula Livnei V'neihem, L'ma'an Shemo Be'ava, Melech Ozer U'Mashiach U'Magin, Baruch atah Adonai, Magin Avraham, V'Ezrat Sarah. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיי הכל, אתר לא שיעה, משיב הרוח ומוריד הגשם, מחלחל חיים בחסד, מחיי הכל ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומחיים אמונתו לשני עפר, מי כמוך בעל גבורות, ומדום מלך, מלך ממית ומחיה, ומצמיח ישועה, ונאמן אתה לחיות הכל, ברוך אתה אדוני, מחיי הכל.
אתה קדוש ושמך קדוש, וקדושים בכל יום יעלוך סלה. ברוך אתה אדוני, האל הקדוש. Feel free to be seated. The next three blessings will just be reading the Chatima, that's the signature, the end of the prayer, which lets everyone know what it's about. The first, for the holiness of Shabbat. Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh ha-Shabbat. Second, that God's loving presence will return to Zion, to Israel. Page 56. Baruch atah Adonai hamachazir shechinato l'tzion. And for thanks and gratitude, the gifts in our lives. Baruch atah Adonai hatov shimcha u'cha lechodot. And finally, our prayer of peace, Shalom Rav, is found on 60. Grant abundant peace to Israel, your people forever, for you're the sovereign God of all peace. May it be pleasing to you to bless your people Israel in every season and moment with your peace. Blessed are you, Adonai, who blesses your people Israel with peace. Baruch atah Adonai, hamvarech et amo Yisrael, b'shalom. Let's take now a few moments for our own thoughts and private reflections. Following that, as I said earlier, Tim Berneman composed actually at least 3 songs in honor of the civil rights movement, perhaps even more. And in your Shabbat booklet or on the screen, you'll find Marching On to Freedom Today, which we'll sing right after these few moments of silent prayer.
Marching on to freedom today. We're marching on to freedom, making our way. When side by side we're rolling tide. We're marching on to freedom today. They tried to take away our civil rights. They tried to stop us there with all their might. But our numbers keep growing now, let me say. Marching on to freedom, marching on to freedom, marching on to freedom today. On our way to a brighter day, moving on, so proud and strong, When side by side we're rolling tide. We're marching on to freedom,
Marching on to freedom,
marching on to freedom,
marching on to freedom.
freedom, sweet freedom. Yes, freedom today.
It's a great song. Great meaning, too. We're going to continue now with a prayer for healing and wellness. On page 253 or on the screen before you, you'll find the words to Misha Beirach, translates to God the one who blesses those in need of healing. And at this time, we think of the following individuals for strength and for courage and healing. Tamir Albacher, Taylor Albacher, Paz Albacher, Ed Bauk, Joanne Beeman Feidelman, Herb Bloom, Marcy Bunn, Lisa Cargile, Eddie Deerfield, Matthew Deinhardt, Edie Eckber, Heather Felser, Harry Fleisch, Myra Friedman, Denise Freifeld, Andrew Guerin, Mark Gittimer, Leah Gottlieb, Ellis Greenberg, Susan Greenberg, Glenda Greenman, Patty Heitner, Mark Eisenberg, Ken Israel, Erwin Kern, Helene Labovitz, Stephen Lieber, Arthur Maller, Nancy Meza, Aaron Mailer, Marcia Mollet, Stephen Knoll, Bella Uziel, Danny Pilder, Bob Rosen, Sue Schoenbaum, Betty Sharp, Riva Sorkers, Jeff Stark, Lee Van Ness, David Gershon ben Leba Elka, and Tikva bat Yaakov Valea. In addition to these names, we think of all those who are affected by COVID, and if there are any other names that you'd like to add, either here in the sanctuary or at home, feel free to recite their names aloud or in your hearts now. In 1968, Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was a guest on The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson. I recently learned that. So I saw the clip this week, and lo and behold, Reverend King told a joke, and I was amazed, especially with his ability to keep a straight face afterwards. He began telling Johnny Carson about the plane he took from Washington, D.C. to Los Angeles that afternoon. It was delayed because of some mechanical issue or another. After some time, the plane took off, and he landed safely in California. Then Reverend King said, "Whenever I land a plane, or land with a plane after mechanical difficulties, I'm always very happy. Now, I don't want to give you the impression that as a Baptist preacher, I don't have faith in God in the air. It's simply that I've got more experience with God on the ground." It's pretty good. It was a poignant moment, one, because I never really thought Martin Luther King would have a sense of humor, but of course he's human, like everyone else. And two, it was a very real exchange for a man who many see as a modern-day prophet, including myself. Let's go back a few years from that moment on The Tonight Show. After Reverend King was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize in October 1964, there was a dinner in his honor planned in Atlanta by a committee of 4 people: a local rabbi, Jacob Rothschild, the Archbishop Paul John Hallinan of the Catholic Church, the editor of the Atlanta Constitution, Ralph McGill, and the president of Morehouse College, Benjamin Mays. The tickets for the dinner, which was scheduled to take place in January of '65, cost $6.50 apiece. In his introduction to Reverend King, Rabbi Rothschild shared, in striving to create a world of brotherhood and dignity for every person, in seeking to achieve the contentment and fulfillment of every human heart, he sets an example of conduct and goals for all people, which is a beautiful statement. But I wonder, for those who were in attendance that evening at that celebratory dinner, a largely white and conservative gathering, I read, what kind of speech were they expecting? Were they thinking that Reverend King would offer gracious thanks for their kindness and generosity while treading lightly on the subject of race? Or did they have an inkling, a feeling, that a powerful sermon was about to come their way? As it turned out, Reverend King didn't disappoint. He went biblical, so to speak. After graciously thanking the community of Atlanta, he shared the rumbling discontent of his people, saying, "The oppressed people will not remain oppressed forever, because the yearning for freedom eventually will manifest itself." He then invoked the epic story of how Moses stood in Pharaoh's court and cried, "Let my people go." As our country prepares to celebrate the life of this great civil rights activist, Reverend King, it's important to note the striking parallels between Moses and Martin. Both were remarkably courageous leaders who insisted on nothing short than complete liberty and justice for their people. Both personally suffered ridicule of powerful leaders who belittled their mission, and both, due to their personal strength and courage, lived to see their oppressors respect their noble efforts. Liberation movements all over the world recall Moses as an inspiration for their own efforts to free their people, and for good reason. Moses had no army to rely upon to enforce his demands of Pharaoh. Unlike the Egyptians, he didn't have any chariots to breach the enemy line. In fact, the only thing that Moses had was the strength of his own voice, really through Aaron, who spoke for him, and the powerful message that people should be free. Of course, having God in your back pocket is always pretty helpful too. Our Torah, and especially this week's reading, Vayera, which means "and I appeared," tells an ageless and inspiring story. Every winter, our annual cycle of Torah reading brings us back to the book of Exodus, where we come to understand that ethics and social justice are imprinted into our very DNA as a people, and that in the great tapestry of creation, every person is created b'tselem Elohim, in God's image, and therefore should be treated with dignity and respect. Not just the people we like or admire, but everyone, regardless of ethnicity, background, or beliefs. Time and again, we're reminded in the present day about how easy it is for people to forget or ignore this truth. We cringe whenever we see visible signs of racism or hear hate speech that devalues another human being. Sadly, many of these signs were present last Wednesday at the insurrection last week at the Capitol. From the noose and gallows that were set up just outside the Capitol, to people flashing the OK sign, to Confederate flags being proudly waved in public view. We know that one person isn't better than any other. But how do we awaken the rest of our country to the universal and inspiring message of the Israelite story? Reverend King showed us the way. Many centuries ago, as Africans were taken from their homes and forced into slavery, they were forced to accept the religion of their owners. But they listened to the words of the Bible. They recognized their life story when they read about the Israelites being enslaved in Egypt. The lessons they heard from the book of Exodus planted the seeds of hope and ultimately led to their liberation, even if it took 2.5 centuries to begin coming to fruition. Whenever and wherever they sang, when Israel was in Egypt's land, "Let my people go," the words of our ancestors were brought to life with new urgency. Reverend King understood the inspiring power of the Exodus and the hope that it gave to the African American community. And he embraced Moses' prophetic voice, our great leader who embodied Torah's system of values. In Jewish tradition, Moses, or Moshe in Hebrew, is known as Rabbeinu, which in Hebrew means our master teacher, and for good reason. He spoke to God and shared Torah with the Israelites, and by extension, each one of us. The guiding principles, the ethics, the values, and the rituals of Judaism. Without a doubt, this moniker was well earned, as he continually faced the challenges of a stiff-necked or tenacious people called the Israelites when they were wandering through the desert of Sinai. Like Moses, Reverend King was guided by moral clarity and action. Like Moses, Reverend King was guided by his conscience. And like Moses, Reverend King just couldn't stay away from going after justice. But he didn't start out as a champion for civil rights. At first, Reverend King was a newly minted man of the cloth, a scholar who earned a PhD in systematic theology from Boston University. Newly married to his wife, Coretta, he took the pulpit of Dexter Avenue Baptist Church in Montgomery, Alabama, at only 26 years old. He was just starting out, learning how to counsel and learning how to craft inspiring sermons that would lift the spirits of his congregation. That's when the leaders of the black community asked him to lead the Montgomery bus boycott, to protest the racial discrimination the company enforced. But like Moses, Reverend King's first inclination was to say no. He wasn't ready. Like Moses first said to God after being told he would lead the Jewish people. Moses said, "Sorry, God, I'm just not your guy. Find someone else." Thankfully, the community leaders didn't let Reverend King get off easily. They were insistent. And ultimately, Reverend King came to realize that this was his path and his chosen direction. Like Moses, he learned to grow into this role and become a great, great leader over time. Some people might say it was due to humility. Others might argue that the task was so daunting and so great that just about anyone would shy away from the responsibility and burden of leadership. Thankfully, Moses and Reverend King changed their minds. They lifted themselves up and did more than their fair share to repair the world, to engage in tikkun olam, the Hebrew phrase and the value of pursuing social justice. They knew they wouldn't complete the work, far from it, but at least they had to try. As Rabbi Rick Jacob, the president of the Reform movement, recently noted, this is the work that Exodus sets out to do. We've been doing it deeply, and others have been doing it deeply. And as our community remembers Dr. King, I hope that it will be a time of recommitment for us all. The peaceful protests of individuals, groups, and community leaders, which led to a crescendo of activity in the Black Lives Matter protests over the summer, will once again gather to champion civil rights. And we must also do our part too, so that Moses and Martin, Reverend King's shared dream of reaching the promised land of freedom and equality, will one day become a reality. Let us remember Moses' call as well as the call for Reverend King. Both men speaking with a clear and prophetic voice. Both men sharing the ever-important message that hope will eventually triumph over hate. The Exodus is an old story, but it can still speak to us every day. We're all capable of doing good in the world, and we can all roll up our sleeves and try and do better. May the story of the Exodus be our wake-up call, a personal call for you and a personal call for me. Shabbat Shalom. Continue with the words of Aleinu, the adoration found on 282. Please rise as the ark is opened.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הרצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגור עלינו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא, ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד.
Feel free to be seated. Continue with the words of Mourner's Kaddish, Kaddish Yatom, words of praise found on the screen before you and in the prayer book on 294. We first think of families in the period of Shloshim, the first 30 days of mourning a loved one. As we remember Newton Levy, brother of Myra Scheidler, Marlene Packler, wife of Mel Packler, Elaine Aiken, sister of Dr. Maurice Aiken, Esther Sargrad, mother of Marcia Alcorn, James Roberts, friend of Jackie Capiello, and Lois Kander, sister of Edie Ekber, mother of Nancy Meza, and grandmother of Emily Meza Gleason. To these names, we also add and mark the yahrzeit, anniversary of death of a loved one during the season in years past. On this Shabbat especially, we remember Ruth Beckman, Scott Friedman, John Guerin, Judy Hamrell, William Harris, Molly Hout, Robert Kaplan, Lisa Levy, Ann Lubotsky, Louise Marks, Hilda Pascal, Myron Sacker, Frida Seaman, Jenny Secundi, and Edith Weiss. Are there any other names to add for Yahrzeit Memorial at this time? We also think of all those families affected by the loss of a loved one due to the pandemic. We keep them all in our hearts as we say, Zichronam Livracha, may all of their blessings, may all of their lives be a lasting blessing to us all. Let's rise together and offer these words of praise, Mourner's Kaddish. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei rabbah, v'yalmad divra chirutei v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayechon u'vyomechon, uv'chayei dekol beit Yisrael, ba'agala u'vizman kariv imru amen. Yehei shemei rabbah mivarach, le'alam u'lalmei almaya, Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal, shemei dekudusha b'richu, la'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, ta'amiran v'yalma v'imru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chaim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Osei shalom b'mramav, hu ya'asei shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. May the one who causes peace in the heavens cause peace to descend on us, Israel, and the world as we say, amen.
V'imiru, 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 amen. V'imiru, 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 amen.
Please feel free to be seated. You'll find the words to the Shabbat Kiddush, blessing over the fruit of the vine, on page 5 in Mishkan Tefillah, our prayer book, dwelling place of prayer, or on the screen before you. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, borei b'riah gafen. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kidishanu b'mitzvotav, v'ratzavanu, v'shabbat kodsho, mi'avahu v'ratzo, hinchilanu, zikara lema'aseh v'reishit, ki hu yom techilah, למקרא הקודש, זכר ליציאת מצרים. כי בנו בחרת, ואותנו קידשת, מכל העמים, ושבת קודשך, באהבה ורצון, הנחלתנו. ברוך אתה אדוני, מקדש השבת. Amen. Time to life.
המוציא לחם מן הארץ, we give thanks to God for bread. Our voices rise in song together as our joyful prayer is said. Baruch atah Adonai, Elohim
bunch of announcements today, but all good stuff. On Tuesday, January 19th, we'll have our third and final live stream adult ed series, Pushcarts and Dreamers, an exploration of Yiddish stories. On Monday, January 25th, I'll be leading a Torah study on Zoom. And on the 26th, we'll live stream Coffee Talk with me, Rabbi Matt, music, trivia, schmoozing. And on January 29th, this just in, 2 Fridays from now, Simon and Garfunkel Shabbat. So that should be a lot of fun. If you like folk music, if you like metal music, maybe not so much. But a lot of people do like Simon and Garfunkel, including myself. On Sunday, January 31st, the Sisterhood will live stream an evening of self-care, girls' night in yoga nidra with instructor Heather Berg. Sunday, February 7th, the Brotherhood will sponsor a road rally scavenger hunt for the congregation starting in our parking lot. The top 3 teams will win Visa gift cards. And on February 25th, Rabbi and stand-up comic Bob Alper will present The Spirituality of Laughter. Why are Jews so funny? So our closing song, you'll find on the screen before you for those here in the sanctuary in our prayer book all the way in the back, page 361. You'll find the words to Go Down Moses, Let My People Go. When Israel was in Egypt's land, let my people go. Pressed so hard they could not stand, let my people go. Go down, Moses, way down in Egypt's land. Tell old Pharaoh to let my people go. Thus said the Lord, bold Moses said, let my people go. If not, I'll smite your firstborn dead. Let my people go. Go down, Moses, way down in Egypt's land. Tell old Pharaoh to let my people go. No more shall they in bondage toil. Let my people go. Let them come out with Egypt's spoil. Let my people go. Go down, Moses, way down in Egypt's land. Tell old Pharaoh to let my people go. And we'll close, as we've been doing now for some time, with a prayer for health and well-being, the mitzvah of protecting life and wearing a mask whenever possible, especially when you're inside. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kichanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu al shmirat hanefesh. We thank all of you for joining us, both here and at home. Thank you to Elisa and Ed in the back for the tech work, our great music, and I say Shabbat Shalom to all of you.